Hello and welcome to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. Talk about monsters, stories behind them, and the mayhem they cause in the modern day world. Today my name's Silver, and the co host is
Chaotically, hello.
the creature this time is the Doppelgangers. You know anything specific about the Doppelgangers, chaotically?
I know some basics that I feel like everybody knows. It's another walking being, another person in the world that looks like another, that kind of basic thing. I know that they can be paranormal or just the average human's unrelated twin, or it could be super creepy. I have a story I'm going to talk about later where it gets super creepy, so I'm excited to see where it goes and what you will know.
Yeah, definitely a one would call it a double walker, which is what doppelganger means in Germany. Is where the word was first used by uh John John Paul. This is John spelled Jean.
Yeah,
eh,
that's like it's a like a French name, like Jean Paul.
uh, in his work with Sabinskas in 1796. I I probably butchered that name of that. I think it was a book. Yeah.
Probably. It's all those names are hard.
But the yeah, especially if you don't speak the language, which I only speak English, and that's not very well. There's a couple different mythological accounts with doppelgangers as well, as most of them being current. There's a lot of famous people as well that have stories of doppelgangers, and different cultures have different words for doppelganger before doppelganger was a word, mostly accounting for evil twins or uh, intangible spirits. Because what I've been finding is doppelgangers are not actually creatures themselves, but they're more of a paranormal being, more closer
Mhm.
to spirits.
Yeah, I saw a lot in my research that they can just be called the evil twin. So they're just like an entity of matching qualities to yourself or to others, obviously.
Yeah, that's correct. They usually look exactly identical to either yourself or a friend. It's said that if somebody sees their doppelganger or evil twin, that they are bound for misfortune, most likely death. That's the most common way. They're like an ill omen, as per sorts. There's been some accounts of doppelgangers trying to communicate with their person they're doppling,
Right, like they're double.
and they're usually trying to lure them into some sort of sinister plot or death. And it's probably advised not to communicate with a mysterious being that looks just like yourself.
I just had a thought. It would have to be terrifying to just be like, especially like, I mean, it would be terrifying nowadays, but like 18th century, just like look across the way and see yourself staring at yourself across the town. That'd have to be terrifying.
That would be terrifying. And also, if you think about it, well, in like 18th century, how many homes had mirrors? How you sometimes you wouldn't even know that you seen yourself unless somebody else told you.
That's true. That is a horrifying thought. Wow.
So they might have been a lot more doppelgangers back then because of less mirrors.
Yeah, they can hide a lot easier. People don't know what they look like and stuff. And social media nowadays, everybody knows what they look like. So
Another thing with doppelgangers is they possess no shadows and they do not cast a reflection.
sketchy.
So
Very sketchy.
that was a way to identify a doppelganger. Some other names for doppelgangers: ancient Egypt mythology. Well, they're kind of similar to doppelgangers, as in there's both intangible spirits. It's the ancient Egyptians called them Ka, or a spirit double. They have the same memories and feelings as the person whom their counterpart belongs. Then there is the this is going to be a hard word because it is Norse mythology. It's kind of a little bit different, but also another double image of him, Spirit Walker type deal.
Right, right.
The Var Dodger or Varsal, Bardogger.
Vodager? I don't hang on. I was trying to look it up myself. Vardoger is looks like it's how it was pronounced like in actual Norse mythology, but it does say the pronunciation is Varsal. So I would imagine just depending on how native you are to the language, it would be one way or the other.
Yeah, but those guys are
Vardoger. Vardoger is how it's pronounced, apparently. I looked it up. But you can also call it a Varsal because it's like a vessel, because it's like a ghost like spirit of a person which was seen doing the actions of a person before they did it, kind of like reverse deja vu. So like a reflection basically, but like it's happening as you're doing your thing. It's like a couple seconds behind what you're doing.
is it a couple seconds behind or ahead?
Behind. So like it says it's like reverse deja vu. So like it's I don't know. I guess it could be before. Like I guess it could be like, like you see yourself do something and then you do it. Or even like you do something and then you see yourself do it again. Kind of like I guess just deja vu esque.
Kind of like oh, there's some animes. Any type of ability to see the future. They see themselves doing something or see somebody doing something before they actually do it. It's somebody seeing two of you at once. Like that, probably, right?
Right. Yeah, I was thinking like I don't know if you've watched the newer Star Wars, but in the newer Star Wars Rey goes down into a cave and there's a mirror there and it's just like endless versions of herself and so she like when she waves or taps, it's just like a ton of different of that action. So then she gets to the point where she doesn't know if it's the before or after effect of what she's done or if it's happening and she's just repeating the motion. So I would imagine it kind of be like that.
That sounds accurate. Okay. And there's one, well, there's two more different things they call them. One, I'm not really sure if you'd be considering doppelganger ish, but from the source I seen, it was just some but changelings from the Scottish myths.
Okay, okay. That goes with my later thing too, so that's a good one. Continue with that one.
It was the people from Orkney Island, Scotland, feared the trow. The trows are little fairy-like creatures that would switch their unhealthy baby with a healthy human, and they'd call those changelings. I don't know if that would be considered doppelgangerish because they're not spirits. That's more of a physical doppelganger, I'd say.
Yeah, but doppelgangers are physical too. That's a big thing in the doppelganger world is like in Vampire Diaries, which I'm sure you've now watched. There's like different doppelgangers of each main character and it's just like an ancestral thing almost. Like there's just been a bunch of doppelgangers each century that look just like the reborn doppelgangers. So it could kind of even be like a rebirth kind of thing for doppelgangers. I think it's very much able to be a physical thing, but I feel like most cultures believed it to be a spiritual thing.
Almost like there's two different categories, really. The main intangible spiritual, like doppelgangers, and the changeling physical doppelgangers swapping places. Because I guess changelings would inevitably die if they're unhealthy trowels. Just like a doppelganger usually dies, or their person dies if they're seen. Changelings are babies, and doppelgangers are adult kids.
This Reddit article says changelings are more or less half doppelgangers. Their shape-shifting abilities are far more limited and they lack telepathy.
So not like so doppelgangers are their own shadowy creatures and they transform. They're not just a person's own spirit. Some people say that the doppelgangers are their own spirits coming out of them as well. Some
Right, right.
cultures.
Yeah, it says changelings are this is from Eberron Wiki. Changelings are a humanoid race who are distantly descended from doppelgangers and share the shape-shifting qualities. Their shape-shifting has led them to be used as spies, assassins, which has in turn led them to be mistrusted amongst people. So, they're like a descendant. I feel like they're like a cousin to the doppelganger, so they're definitely in the race, but they're a little different.
They're in that same shape changer bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but not quite shapeshifters.
Not like Ditto in Pokemon that can just go into anything.
Correct, yes.
Those were some of the names. There's been some, like you said, depictions of doppelgangers in media. There's a painting from the 1851 or 1864. This watercolor was done in called the Doppelganger. How they met themselves, which shows two medieval lovers are walking through the woods at twilight when they encounter the doubles who glow supernaturally. The man draws his sword in astonishment while his lover appears to collapse in a deathly swoon, not spoon,
Spoon.
a deathly spoon. There is definitely a lot of stories out there. People seeing their doppelgangers, or uh, I only have a couple of them. I can tell the stories. Did you want to tell your story first in case I had it as well?
I'm gonna say you probably don't have mine, so please feel free. However, when you mentioned the painting, something did come to mind. Have you ever seen the crazy trending thing where you find your doppelganger painting in a museum?
I have not.
It is terrifying. There are so many people that look exact to paintings of Renaissance ages, ages beyond what we can even comprehend, and these people look just like the people in the pictures. It's insane.
That is crazy, but would guess that'd be another form of doppelganger, someone who looks just like you.
Mhm, yep, and
Uh,
these paintings, I mean, there's they do a bunch with, famous stars. So, like, there's a Benedict Cumberbatch one, there's a, the gentleman that plays Tyrion Lannister, there's one that looks just like him. There's, normal people that go out and, go find, I think there was a, Prince Henry one, and there's no, not Prince Henry, hang on. There is a Vincent van Gogh one. The Vincent van Gogh one is terrifying. It's an imagery of Vincent van Gogh that was painted, almost like with acrylic paints, and a gentleman standing right beside it, and it's eerie. It's very eerie. Like he could have been descended from Van Gogh himself, quite literally.
Finding people that look like you in paintings is cool. There's a lot of combinations for human genetics, and just to have the same ones come out as someone that's already had them for how you look is crazy.
Yeah,
There,
it's absolutely insane.
I got five examples, I guess you'd call them.
Go for it. I want to hear him.
The first one, the first example is Abraham Lincoln. He has been reported, recorded, uh, seeing his own doppelganger during his first term as president. It was said that he was laying down in bed and looked up in his mirror and seen himself, or a ghost, or a pale, or he seen himself, but half his face was pale, real pale white, and is he got up, it disappeared. He lay back down in bed, it appeared again. He ended up telling his wife, and his wife told him that that means that he shall make it through his first term as president, but he will not make it through his second term as president. And as most people know, he got shot by John Wilkes Booth during his second term as president.
Wow, I don't think I ever knew that.
Or the other story I have that's a little bit longer is Percy Shelley, who is a poet and also Mary Shelley's husband, the lady who wrote Frankenstein.
Okay.
So the story starts out with Percy and Mary, along with uh, Mary's stepsister. I think her name was Claire, going on vacation. And this just happened. They just all went on. They also had the Williams go with them, their friends. And Claire's daughter just died passed away at a, I can't remember what they called it. It was some sort of school, I believe. Percy was on the beach by himself. He looked up and he saw Mary's daughter out in the ocean. had just passed away, and then a wave crashed over her and disappeared.
Creepy.
And then later on, Mary was pregnant with her fifth kid, and just so happened to have another miscarriage. So she miscarried three of her four kids before this one. This time it about killed her, but Percy was able to get her into an ice bath to save her life. Unfortunately, their child did not make it. A couple weeks later, Percy was on the beach again, and he thought Mr. Williams that was with him was walking up behind him. But it turned out when he turned around to be the exact copy of himself. He looked at him, and the doppelganger Percy just kept on walking by him, didn't say a word, just walked out into the ocean.
Wow.
Yep. And then later on, after that, uh, the the Williams and Mary thought they seen Percy walking past them, then walk off the balcony of their place they were staying. And when they went to look, no one was there. And then Percy showed up a couple minutes uh, in the direction his doppelganger just came from.
Ooh, how eerie.
To conclude the story, kind of, him and the Williams, I believe, were on this boat they took out for a race around the lake, and it started to storm real bad.
Mhm.
And but Percy would not let anybody go into shore during this big storm, and they ended up crashing to some rocks and being found a couple days later. Percy was only recognized by his some letters in his pocket and his clothing, as his hands and face have all been eaten by fish and beaten by rocks and such from the storm.
Oh my god.
The third one, not quite a story, being a lot older. Uh, but it was someone that tried to defy their doppelganger. Was a Russian ruler called Catherine the Great.
Okay.
From what the story says, she was in her bed and a couple of her chambermaids, came in saying they just seen her walk into the court where the throne and stuff is. Well, Catherine didn't like that so much, so she got up, went to the courtroom throne, and seen her doppelganger sitting on the throne with her crown. And she just simply ordered her guards to shoot her doppelganger. It doesn't. I couldn't find anywhere whether the bullets were effective against it or not, or what exactly happened. But later after that, she suffered a stroke and died.
Ooh, scary.
Queen Elizabeth I had also seen her own doppelganger shortly before her death. Doppelganger was slain in her bed, looking ill, sickly. Later on, Queen Elizabeth fell ill and died as well.
That's creepy to think about.
That's all for my. I got one more, but it's more of a joke kind of doppelganger. So I'll go ahead if you want to go ahead with your story.
So my story kind of has to do with it being modern day mayhem, if that makes sense. Just so we can just kind of like yeet ourselves into that section, I guess. One of my favorite Stephen King books is called The Outsider, and he has a sub book that he wrote in the novel If It Bleeds. It's actually the If It Bleeds story within the five stories of that novel, and it's about what they call the outsider. And more or less, it's a changeling slash doppelganger that takes the identity of others and like completely forms into them over a couple of days' time, either by like pricking them and like taking their blood or like saliva swaps, stuff like that. Like it can get its DNA and like shift and change. And without spoilers and stuff, I thought it was neat because in the second book rendition thing, it talks about how it can be as severe as killing children or killing people, like setting up people, like innocent people, and then they go to jail for it, which is kind of what happens in the first book. But in the second book, it's in like a like an anchorman or a field agent for a newscaster, and they go to this school that just recently got shot up, and there's lots of tragedy, lots of dead bodies, lots of horrendous things that are going on. Families are groveling and sobbing, and this changeling slash doppelganger is feeding off of the sorrow. So he is able to change into this monstrosity, go in, shoot up the school or whatever, and then he's able to change into his regular newscasting self that everybody thinks is human, chilled, relaxed, whatever. But he's taken the DNA of somebody and become this newscaster. So who knows where this real newscaster went? And is feeding off of that energy from that scene, from that murder scene that he's now live detailing about for the camera. And it was really neat for me to think of like modern day society wise how conspiracy theorists or insane it would be if something like that were able to occur, if they were able to feed off of our sorrows and stuff, which makes it even neater when you say like the queens and the ladies and stuff like that all saw these doppelgangers, just a little bit before their own untimely deaths.
Yeah, they always seem to appear right before something bad happens. So it would make sense a little bit if they feed off of the sorrows and you said that they
Well, right, and
sow their
there's
own.
a lot of the folklore say that they're harbingers of death, so
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I just thought it was neat. I mean, Stephen King is one of my favorite minds in the entire world, anyways. But I just thought it was neat that one of his books that I read kind of fell into the doppelganger changeling area, and how neat it is to think that he had written it kind of in a more modern day society. So, like, whereas we would maybe notice our doppelganger, which there's like a ton of sites where you can like find your twin that like that kind of looks like you, but to like see an exact doppelganger, I feel like it'd be very Stephen King esque, where it's like a setup or like uh a spooky paranormal thing, just like the like we had talked about at the beginning with it being paranormal or like deja vu or creepy or eerie.
definitely be eerie to see someone just like you with all your memories and be able to answer all the questions exactly right.
Yeah, it's very very fancy.
This doppelganger, I don't know if it spoils the story, but the doppelganger in the story, did he get caught anyway? So in this story that you told that was in the doppelganger with the news anchor, did he get caught? Is there a certain way that they were able to tell he was a doppelganger, dispose of him, or did he just kind of fade out, disappear the crowd?
Um, Without spoilers, the news anchor himself does kind of get caught. There's an agent in the story who was there during the first book who witnessed the first doppelganger of this verse and knew what to look for, more or less. But like to the human eye, nobody would have ever known or guessed. The first doppelganger is much creepier. There's a baseball coach in town that's very like, he goes to everything. He goes to all the PTA meetings. He does like the bake sales with his wife. He's very that's the coach that all the parents trust with their kids. And he ends up actually going in and getting taken in for the murder of a kid. One of the kids that was on his baseball team, actually, to be um clear about it. But he gets framed by this doppelganger, and the doppelganger has it down to his fingerprints, his DNA all over the scene, like everything down to a point. And then by the time this guy is getting dragged into jail and dealt with, the police find like security footage and stuff of him like getting on a train and going, and he was home, like he was accounted for, he was in jail. And they find video of him getting on a train, but his face is like slightly drooped, and you can tell that like the DNA is not quite there. So like eyebrows kind of looked humanoid, but like they also kind of looked like jagged, like an alien almost, or like the fingerprints would start to melt off, so he wouldn't have actual like fingerprint lines. It would just be the hands kind of like a glop. And the little girl ends up seeing him some point in the story, and she calls him the man with no face, and she said that his eyes and his mouth had drooped like he was a broken smiley face and was like melting. So it was like he had to, in between, find these other DNAs to be able to shed and move on to the next person.
I see. So a doppelganger without his face would be kind of like Slender Man almost. His kind of face would be just kind of blank. But
Yes, Slenderman are like a very spooky ditto in human form.
yeah, be kind of funny to see like that messed up Ditto with the just the dots for the eyes if a person came in just like that.
Oh my god, that'd be terrifying. I mean, it'd be cool to see, but, like, that would be horrifying. Could you imagine?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to stare him in the face. I'd probably
No.
beady eyes.
Yeah, those soulless eyes of the Ditto would be sketchy.
And just one more thing before we jump directly into the mayhem. Some scientists have believe that these accounts of doppelgangers and seeing your second self linked to medical conditions as well. Uh, is why they usually die. It's the most common one that I found linked to seeing a doppelganger, experiencing out of body experience, being able to see your own body, is schizophrenia.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, schizophrenia is one of the bigger ones, and it almost, pulls me. I've never actually, like, sat down and watched the movie Lucy, but the reason that she becomes, like a superhero or, like, unobtainable and, like, is able to access crazy things that she can do is because she opens up 100% of her human mind because we're only supposed to be able to use, like, almost 50% or less of it, I think, or it's, like, 70% or less of your brain is actually in use. And, it would be crazy if people that have, like, schizophrenia and, multiple personality disorder and stuff are just accessing greater parts of their mind and able to see the things that we cannot.
Yeah, be able to picture themselves outside their own body from a different perspective. My last little kind of makeshift one would be Gengar from Pokemon. He is the doppelganger of Clefairy,
Right, right, just darker and scarier.
and a ghost type. That's what.
Ooh, that's a good, like, a good note, like, I don't know what I was trying to say, like, a good observation, like, that's a really good, like, comparison, I guess.
And his name's kind of there too. Ganger, doppelganger.
Ooh, that's big thinking, that's big brain.
That was my last little thing. We can jump into the mayhem now. Uh,
Fantastic. We kind of brushed on it, so
Yep,
that gives us a good opening.
I'll let you start this off.
Um, I feel like in today's modern society, for a doppelganger, you got me saying Gengar now. For a doppelganger, it would be very hard for them to blend and not be noticed because, like we said earlier, everybody on social media knows what they look like now. You know, people take selfies, we look in mirrors, we do makeup a lot more often. We're doing upkeep and self-care more so than they did in the 18th century. So we know what ourselves look like. However, I don't know that my brain would register seeing myself somewhere else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I know I probably wouldn't recognize my own self seeing it. Uh,
Mhm.
uh Especially in a picture. Be like, is that kind of looks like me, but I'm not really sure.
Mhm.
Especially on social
There's
media,
a
which Photoshop's now a thing.
Yeah, yeah, and Photoshop's scary. There's a movie called Cam, and it's about a cam girl, and she ends up having she realizes that there's a bunch of other cam girls that are like getting hurt or going missing or whatever. And so she kind of looks into it. Well, then she starts her own stream one night and it's not her. Like she's at home. She hasn't started her stream or anything, but it's her. And the super messed up thing is once she gets on, she ends up going live from her computer and she's like, that's not me. And her viewers are like, what's going on? Like, this is stupid. Like, this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. She ends up like doing stuff like smacking her head on her desk or like grabbing a pencil and stabbing her arm. And then the doppelganger's forced to do it as well. So if we thought about like modern day society, like streaming or camming or just like going live on TikTok, could you imagine going live on TikTok and then going back and realizing that you went live on TikTok again, but it wasn't you? Like, modern day society doppelgangers would be terrifying in a lot of different ways than just a spiritual version of yourself across the way.
Definitely scary in that way. They could definitely ruin some people's lives, especially with the
Mhm.
shape changing. Not just they could kill them indirectly, ruining their lives that way.
Right, and that differs the question too of some of the older, like the Norse folklore and stuff, do they derive from our spirit, like our souls? So are these like fractions of souls that we're seeing, or is it just pure paranormal entities.
Yeah, because that'd be the big question: is does everybody have their own doppelganger, or is there a creature doppelganger nests that they attach to people? They choose their own victims, food source.
Right. Like kind of like the Stephen King story. Are they choosing the person or is it just a doppelganger assigned to that person? Like, do some people just get doppelgangers? Or is it like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing? Like, we go back to the schizophrenia. Is it just certain people that are that advanced to know that that person exists? Like, do we all have one?
I think the first part would be the more mayhemy to more terrifying, where there's creatures
Mm
out there lurking in order to feed on sorrow and be in the ill omen of death that they come for you when it's near your time. Oh, are they just the ones that get blamed for the death because they're around after they sense your death coming?
hmm. Right.
Like the Norse, like you said, that you have a doppelganger and they're always with you. I don't think that'd be cause too much issue, especially if they're only moving just behind you or just ahead of you enough for you can't notice. Sometimes some people do. Kind of wonders if that's also part of maybe parallel worlds.
Mm hmm.
It's
Yeah,
kind of,
that's true too. You know, just a matter of there's so many different lores for it, which is neat for all of the creatures that we do. But it's just a matter of in modern day society, if any of those things existed, I this is one of the ones I just don't know how we would react because the thing about doppelgangers is they wouldn't attack all at once. Like you wouldn't see everyone have a doppelganger all at once. It's slow. They only like it seems like they only feed or come around when the like the original passenger is ready to die or like is getting close to death. So like no matter in the lore, it seems to be just about the same. Like it usually comes around when there's a bigger, scarier, more gruesome event.
yeah, it's not like the Tarask that we talked about in episode 1 where we just send the military out or we can kill it. These things you
Right.
don't know if you can kill them. You don't know if they're tangible or intangible they're going to be. You don't know when they're going to appear.
Yep. Yeah. It'd be that's got to be it would just have to be that's something you have to fight on your own. That's I love learning about paranormal creatures and like monsters and stuff, but paranormal monsters and creatures have to be one of the bigger fears of mine because what do? You can't fight them. They're I mean like in the book that I read, they have ways to defeat them, but the rituals and stuff are so intricate. It's always difficult. So you wouldn't just be able to look at your doppelganger and be like, "Be gone." Like that's not how it works. It would have to be something you'd have to fight. It's like a personal demon that you have to figure out. So that one would definitely be a more chaos inducing one. I would like to hear viewers' thoughts if they ever wanted to put them out there, maybe on our Twitters or something, on what they would do if a doppelganger showed up. Because I know me as a Twitch streamer, which I'm sure you can relate to. If I like saw that somebody that was me went live and it wasn't me, I'd have like a heart attack.
Yeah, I wouldn't have no clue what to do.
Right. Like what's your initial what's your comeback? Like what are you going to do? How do you like that's insane.
There'd be no way really to try and find some way to credit that to show people that it's not you, like the person in your story did. Yeah,
Right, right. And the sad thing was, you know, with like most doppelganger stories, they didn't realize it was a doppelganger until, you know, it's either too late or stuff is happening already. And I feel like that's just how doppelgangers work. You would never know. Like if I were just to stop by your house and knock on your door and be like, "Hey Matt, what's up?" And we have a full-fledged conversation, you call me later and you're like, "Hey, like did you get home okay?" And if I was like, "I never left."
yeah, that's
What
true.
you
Because
do?
doppelgangers cannot just be yourselves; they can be your friends.
Yeah.
They can be people you know.
Yeah,
Have
I
no
just pop
clue.
up and I'm like, "What's up? Like, how are you doing?" We just have like a whole full-fledged conversation and you call me and you're like, "Hey, did you get home okay?" And I straight deadpan and just I never left my house. What are you going to do? What's your initial reaction? Like then the next time I come over, you're going to be like, "I don't know about this. I don't know who you are."
That brings up a good question of mine that, or I just thought of here in a moment. If doppelgangers copy you exactly, and it's the modern day world, cell phones. They copy your cell phones? Did they take your messages?
I mean, in that movie Cam that I watched, it took her entire streaming, and it wasn't even on her computer.
Well,
It
if I
was her
were
in her room and her stuff with her computer, but it wasn't.
well, if I were to text you and your doppelganger standing in front of me, will your doppelganger get that text message as well as you?
I mean, for mirror sake, like if doppelgangers really are mirror versions, then it probably would.
Yeah.
However, you'd probably piss it off. You'd probably find out pretty quick that it's a doppelganger.
Yeah, yes, that's true. I wonder if they can be captured on film because they have no reflection or shadow, but would film capture them?
I
Well, I guess
I
if
mean,
using
yeah, that
doppelgangers in pictures.
well, that in pictures, paintings, like you're able to capture them, but I think that okay, so this is a conspiracy theorist thing. I'm sorry guys if nobody's conspiracy like don't think I'm crazy here. There's a video that goes around of Beyonce, okay? And she's performing, and when she performs, she does like her hair flips and her dances, which are crazy. And we all know that video lags and there's always crazy stuff that happens. It's not always just like a paranormal experience. But there's a video of her where she flips her hair up during one of the halftime shows that she does. And when she flips her hair up, I guess the best description I can give is did you ever watch Scooby Doo Unleashed, like the real life Scooby Doo where they actually had the actors?
Yeah,
Do you remember what they looked like when the monsters were underneath their mask and they were just like pretending to be the humans?
a little bit. Been a
That's
while.
what she looked like. Like her eyes were hollowed out and her mouth was a little bigger than it should have been, and it looked like there was a mask and it wasn't quite her. And that's a viral video that goes around. So there's always contemplative questions of is there actual, like can if when we catch them on film, is it just little bitty glitches that we have? And then people are like, oh, it's just a glitch. Is it though? Like, I guess if we can catch it on film, I feel like that would kind of be what it would be like. So if you took a picture of one, it kind of looked like it was misplaced or like disembodied, and they'd just be like, "Oh, the picture just moved or the camera moved," that kind of thing. But I feel like you would still like little glints, like even if it was just like a little piece of like flesh behind the ear that you thought was like maybe it looked like it had been in like an incision or something. I feel like there would be telltales. We would just have to know what to look for.
Most people don't should be the scary part.
Well, like, and you said it was friends. Like, if you come knock on my door, I'm not gonna like check behind your ears for shit. Like, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, what's up? Like, how are things going?" Like, I'm just gonna talk to you. You don't think about that kind of thing.
I'm not sure how we end this part.
I don't know.
There's a
There's a
lot of
lot. It's an open contemplation. It can be very intense.
paranormal. I think most of our paranormal episodes are going to probably be open ended, unless there's
Yeah,
some.
and I feel like no, but I feel like that's a good way for viewers to come find our maybe we should make a Discord or something.
Yeah,
Like a podcast Discord. I'd like that.
it'd be fun. We can
Yeah.
post our show notes and stuff in it.
Yeah, and then we can have the like people like our listeners come in and tell us, "Hey, what's your thoughts?" And then we could do like revisits, like down the line when we've had some episodes, we could always come back and be like, "Hey, you remember when we talked about doppelgangers? Like we're going to talk about some of your guys' ideas and like, that kind of thing." Cuz I'd really like to know what people would do because like I wouldn't think twice if some of my really close friends walked up to the door and were just like, "Hey, what's up? Like, you wanna hang out, do whatever?" Like, I really wouldn't think twice. It wouldn't be until after they left and I got a hold of them and they were like, it wasn't me, that it would hit me, you know? So that would be scary in a lot of ways. And then after that, what do? You don't know what to do. Like, you can't just be like, "Oh my god, was that you?" Like, you can't text the doppelganger and be like, "Why would you do that to me?" Because it's gonna be your friend. Your friend's like, "Well, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about." And then what happens if that friend shows up again? How do you know if it's a doppelganger or not? It'd be sketchy. It'd be sketchy.
Shine a bright light at them. See if they have
Yeah,
a
if it
shadow.
hisses, I
Yeah.
don't know though because well, I mean, or a shadow. I was gonna say I might hiss anyways, so don't shine
Well,
bright lights at me. But
unless it's part changeling, then you never know. It could have a shadow.
mm,
It could or could have a shadow. Could not have a reflection. It's really, there's no good way to tell.
every time a friend walks through the door, I'm gonna be like, "Look at this mirror. Look in the side of this mirror." I wonder if they're like vampires because they have no reflection and stuff. I wonder if we have to invite them in. That'd be interesting.
Well,
Like
in
if they're like,
some,
"Hey, can I come in?" and you're like, "No," and they're just like, "What do you mean?" And then they couldn't come in. That'd be a way to know.
yeah, the stories they had, though, yeah, they were mostly outside. Besides, well,
Besides the queens and stuff that saw them laying in their beds and stuff.
and Abraham Lincoln saw his in the mirror.
Ah, see, but how did that happen? They don't have reflections.
Maybe he was
So many
actually in
open
the
ends.
mirror. Yeah, there's
Yeah. Well, there's a big it's kind of like a oh, what am I trying to say? Like a myth about mirror demons because like there's a big conspiracy that you can go and look in the mirror and if you look long enough, you won't see yourself. So, who knows? Maybe there's like a whole like you said earlier, maybe there's like a whole mirror side of things where the doppelgangers exist that we don't even know about and some of them just slip through.
true. That sounds like a topic for another day with mirror monsters.
Mirror monsters. Fantastic. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of open-ended room. So I'd like to hear viewers' take on it because I as personally, I feel like I wouldn't know until after the doppelganger left, and then I wouldn't know what to do after that.
I also probably wouldn't really know what to do. I probably also wouldn't even notice after they left and I texted people because I myself have a bad memory of talking with people.
Yeah, but
So
I feel like if like your friend was there, like if say your really good friend James stopped by and was like having a full conversation with you and you messaged him and was like, "Hey, do you remember like when we did blah blah blah?" And he was like, "No, like I never even left my house." You would be like, okay." Like I feel like you would still notice to an extent with something like that. You know, it'd be super creepy if like your friends made like a day in time to like visit you and you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna come hang out on like Friday and like we'll watch a movie or whatever." And then Friday hits and you're sitting there watching the movie with your friend and then your friend texts and says that they can't make it.
yeah, that would be super creepy. I'd probably ask the doppelganger, "Did you just text me?" Yeah, that probably
Oh
wouldn't
my
end very
god,
well.
you're gonna die, Matthew. You'd be that person that dies in the horror
Yeah,
movie.
it that would happen.
No. Yeah, it's rough. I don't know what I would do. It's definitely one of those ones that is just like there's so many possibilities and so many outcomes. I think the social world would respond with panic if like there ever was like a mass uprising of doppelgangers for sure. I think a good reference is a Jordan Peele movie where there's like a whole entity of doppelgangers that live underneath the earth and then like they come up and like try to destroy the normal people versus the doppelgangers. Like I feel like if there was ever an apocalyptic situation like that, it'd be very similar where we would just like have to fight back individually.
Rise of the Molman doppelgangers.
Rise of the BS. I'm done. I'm out. I'd be leaving. I don't know where I'd go, but I'd be gone.
They'd move up, we'd move down.
Whoop. Yeah, I'm gonna go in the cave. I'll see you guys later. I'll be there. Y'all let me know when it's over.
And a doppelganger tell another person's doppelganger.
Yeah, I mean, in the Jordan Peele movie, they could. They all
Oh,
knew which ones were the doppelgangers and which ones weren't. Because, like, the most times the doppelgangers outside of my Stephen King story aren't like coherent. Like, they don't know English, they don't know to write or read. They just kind of exist. But then there's like obviously like the more modern day stories of them, they've adapted. So I don't know. It could go one way or the other.
yeah. Like you said, these are so many open ended questions. We'd love to hear what you viewers have to say. Comment. We'll see if we can make a Discord for the podcast and message us on either of our Twitters or Twitches, even.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
that should
Stop
be
by
in
our
the
streams.
most of those should be in the description and below on the podcast episode as well. Uh,
Yeah, stop by our streams and freak us out. Tell us what you'd do if you were a doppelganger. If you come on acting like a doppelganger, though, I might have to eat you. So don't do that. All right, guys. Well, that's it for Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem. No doppelgangers. We're speaking to you here today, thankfully. If you guys would like, please make sure you follow, rate, share. We're going to start releasing every Monday, so make sure you guys watch for next Monday. Below in our description, we're going to have all of the sources that Silver is amazing and looks into every week, and make sure you guys can see what we were talking about. We will also have a new Discord link in there by then, so please go ahead and hit that invite button and join in so that you can give us reviews, rates, speak to us, give us some advice, maybe even tell us your doppelganger story or what you would do against it. Hopefully, none of you have a doppelganger story because that's terrifying. However, we will be back next Monday and we hope to see you then.